Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Nick Cage Fight Podcast, where every once in a while we get a weird invitation from an ex to a strange island with no cell service, and nothing bad happens to us. It's just basically a fun vacation. I'm one of your hosts, Josh, joined as always by Rich and Ryan. How are we feeling about wrapping up this fantastic piece of cinema?
Oh, I'm so ready. I very much unironically enjoyed this movie.
The last quarter of this movie is perfect, in my opinion.
There are some moments of perfection before like that last little climax too, but yeah, it's a good ass movie. This one I'm gonna probably have to purchase, especially because the version that I watched was not complete.
Oh, wait, Ryan, did you see the picture I sent you in the group chat?
Which one?
I was at a thrift shop and they had adaptation for $1.
Oh yeah, I did. I saw that.
It's gonna be like, yo, do you want this?
No, I don't.
I didn't think so, but I didn't know if you were trying to do a completionist run of Nick Cage movies.
No, I'm good. I'm just gonna buy the ones I love.
Ryan, I was a little bit upset that you didn't like the Who Drink Arnold.
I meant to.
I was just like, I thought that was directly up your alley, and then when I got no reaction, I was
laser
like, oh,
targeted towards me, but like okay. I've been running around for the past few days. So I didn't have a chance to respond, but yeah,
perfectly fine. My main concern was I didn't have your taste pegged. So
yeah, no, you did.
Good, perfect.
Straight down to my favorite summertime drink.
I will find it and I will buy it.
Hell yeah.
So where we last left off, Edward was going up to the schoolhouse to find Willow. There is a weird scene, like I'm having seen the whole film, I know what they're going for, but at times I am baffled with the direction they chose to take. And this is one of those scenes. It's a throwaway scene. He's on a path. He's walking down a path, and just like 4 pregnant women just walk by him on the path. And he's just like, huh, and keeps going. Edward finds the school. And this is one of my favorite parts of the movie. I have a lot of favorite parts of this movie, but this is a really good one. So Edward is leaning in the doorway listening, and the teacher goes, class, by the way, it is an all-girls school. If you haven't caught on to the theme of this island yet, it will become increasingly more apparent.
It is women rule and boys drool.
Yeah. This is a women rock movie. That's what it is. But she's like, what is man at its core? At his very core. And all of the girls raise their hand. And she turns to, of course, like a young set of twins, and is like, you guys collectively answer it, because all twins in this film are collectives. They're a hive mind. Yeah. And both of them in tandem go, phallic symbol, which this is one of the whatever. I don't know what direction Cage was given in this movie, but at a certain part, he starts playing it like a normal person witnessing this shit.
Yeah.
And he just starts laughing. He's like, school's changed since I was in it, apparently.
This plays out a little different in the original, since the entire point of the original is that the cop that shows up to the island is like a straight-laced, good Protestant English man who doesn't think about sex or anything like that until he's married. He's like fucking admonishing everything the teacher is saying right off the bat, essentially being like, this is vile. Why are you teaching these children about phallic symbols? But they're talking about the maypole being a spring phallic symbol in pagan religions in the original version, instead of what is man. Because there's a correct answer to what is man, and it's a miserable little pile of secrets.
Well, yes, of course. We learn that from the teacher himself.
Yes, Dracula. And right before he throws his wine glass and jumps up and says, "Have at you."
So perfect of a line. That's good writing right there. That's what that is. So Edward tries the cop routine again with the kids, and shows them all the photograph of the missing little girl. Everyone denies knowing her, but Edward notices an empty desk. And when he opens this, all right, so I'm sorry. This part from the school on, this movie really starts cooking, because after the response to the phallic symbol answer, Edward goes to this empty desk, this unoccupied desk, opens it, and a crow flies out. And he goes, "What?" Just like he's like, "What? What is going on?" And the kids are like, "Oh, we trapped it in there to see how long it would survive." And he's just like, "What are you fucking teaching these kids? That's insane." And then he storms to the front of the classroom. He snags out the attendance roll book, opens it and leaves through it, and sees an entry for Rowan, the name of the missing girl. And it's got like just a line drawn through it. And so he's like, "You've been lying. What's going on? What happened to this girl?" And the teacher's like, "Come outside and I'll tell you." And outside, the teacher goes, "Rowan died in an accident. Her mom is delusional because of grief. So yeah, that's what happened. Rowan was here. She died. We look at death differently than you guys do because we think people still live on in the world and stuff like that. That's why we're saying she never existed."
Yeah, she's all cryptic
Rowan.
and shit and refuses to use the word dead or death.
Yeah. And so Edward goes, how did she die then?" And the teacher, Sister Rose, by the way, all of the names are plant names for whatever reason. And Sister Rose says she'll burn to death. And he's like, "I'm sorry, what did you say?" And she's like, "I said exactly what I meant to say. She burned to death." And you're like, "You fuck. You're playing games." But Edward, of course, is just like, "Yeah, no, that's fine. I heard something wrong. I'm on medication. I had a traumatic experience. Maybe some of this is on me." But the next scene, like, we just got hit with a bunch of solid scenes at this point in the movie, because Edward takes off from the school, presumably, I think, to find the grave, I think is what his current quest line is. And on his way from the church, he runs into like a group of women who look like farmers of some sort. And one of them is 100% Molly Parker.
Yeah.
Like in a hat. And he's like, which way to the church?" And she's like, "It's over there." And she's doing like a funny voice on top of all of it too, like a deeper voice. And he's like, "Hey," the way he phrases this is fucking insane too. He's like, "Didn't I just talk to you?" And she's like, "No, absolutely not." Not like, "Aren't you also the fucking teacher? How'd you beat me down here?" Like, and it's never addressed again. Not once. Not one time.
I'm assuming there's more deleted scenes that just didn't end up in the, I guess, extended edition that you had originally seen.
Yeah, no, let me tell you, in the extended edition I've seen, they do not address this either, which is just amazing. Which is extra funny because Edward interacts with Sister Rose more times in the movie. They could have fucking played around with it. And it was like, "Oh yeah, there's a bunch of creepy twins on this island." That would have been another thing they could have ran with. Anyway, Willow finds Edward in the graveyard, and he's at like a freshly turned patch of dirt, which is clearly where Rowan is supposed to be buried. And she keeps insisting that this is a hoax. People are lying. Her daughter isn't dead. She also implies that the women are blaming her and Rowan for something, possibly the issues with the crops that we heard about in the tavern, right? So everybody keeps referring to Sister Summer's Isle, a sister whose name is literally the same name as the island that they're on, as the leader of this particular girl crew. And this is also the point in the film where Willow lets slip that Rowan is actually Edward's kid. His response to this is ridiculous. He isn't like, "All right, so you got pregnant with my kid and just dipped and never contacted me again until she went missing. That's crazy. I'm angry. I have feelings about this." He's just like, "Oh shit, I got a kid and she's missing. Now I want to find her extra hard."
Yeah, he's missing a lot of red flags on this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. This is a weird reaction. So Willow at this point takes Edward to her house, to show him Rowan's room. On the day she went missing, Willow explains that she went to the market, but it was only for like a half hour. And when she came back, not only was Rowan gone, but all of Rowan's personal belongings were gone too. Toys, clothes, all that shit. Which is creepier, right? It's creepy enough, coming home and finding like your kid missing, but if like all their shit is missing too, that's when you're in a horror movie, right? That's an extra layer. Who does that? That's crazy shit. But Edward does actually do a decent job of fully investigating the room, like a video game character, and he finds disturbing doodles on the underside of Rowan's desk. It's like scribbles and stick figures, and then prominently shown the words "help me." Yeah, which is kind of bonkers. He asks Willow, like, was Rowan depressed or something? She's scribbled some pretty disturbing things underneath her desk, and Willow's like, yeah, she's a fucking kid. Kids do that. I like something as brush offish as that. I'm not sure if that's exactly what she says. But Edward sees that seaplane. He sees through the window the seaplane coming in to land at the dock of the island. And he's like, I gotta go. I need to use the plane's radio. Again, because this island doesn't have cell service. I got to admit, when I was watching this, this has to be one of the earliest iterations of a horror movie having to deal with cell phones. Am I wrong on that, Ryan? I know you're a horror movie aficionado as well.
2006, yeah, that's still pretty early for it being considered like pretty standard for you to have a cell phone.
Yeah, right. And
Yeah.
this is the first horror movie I remember having to directly address the ease of communication.
Yeah.
So Edward heads out, and when he gets to the dock, he calls out and no one answers. Like the plane is clearly parked. So he checks his cell phone, confirms he has no service, and then sits down to wait for the pilot to return to ask to use his radio. While he's sitting there waiting, he thinks he sees a girl underneath the docks, like floating underneath the docks that he can see through like a grate or something like that. So he dives over the edge and swims down to her. And there is a drowned young girl underneath the docks. And then he wakes up. It turns out he fell asleep on the docks. And he's like, oh, that's crazy. And then he looks down, and in his arms, he's cradling a drowned girl. And then he wakes up again. Double dream scene.
Yep. Dream within a dream. Dreamception.
Double dream. Which
it's just missing the foghorn.
I don't know how often you see that outside like a Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah, yeah. Or parodies of Nightmare on Elm Street
exactly.
films. Yeah.
So finally, sick of waiting, Edward dives off the dock and swims over to the seaplane, opens it up, and finds just the radio completely destroyed. So Edward, having been foiled in his attempt to contact the outside world, pulls on another investigation thread and goes to see the only person on the island who takes photographs. And that is the doctor, Dr. Moss, I believe. I refer to her from here on out in my notes and on this podcast as Dr. Photographer. This cracked me up because those are her two jobs on the island. She is a doctor, and she is the doctor and the photographer. It's like Dr. Barber from Marvelous Misadventures of Flapjack, which I don't know if either of you guys watched that cartoon years back.
I do not.
I've seen some, but the fact that a doctor is a barber is a pretty standard thing pre-1900.
Well, yeah. That was the funny thing about it, is it's based in what actually happened. Your barber was your doctor.
Your barber was your surgeon too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the funny thing from
the show, hair, I cut arms off, I cut everything.
Exactly. The funny thing from the show was they like leaned into how ridiculous it was, because the character would stand outside his place of business busking and he'd be like, haircuts, surgery. Haircuts, surgery. Anyway. So Dr. Photographer, he goes to her house and says he's looking for the missing photo of the Harvest Festival from the last year. She has a book on her desk that's open when he comes in, and she quickly closes it suspiciously, supposedly to, keep Edward from inquiring further about it. The problem for her is that the cover of this book reads Rituals of the Ancients, which makes your antenna go up, not down. Like, if you just had an open book on your desk and be like, all right, they like to read. If you close the book and it's like secret magical formula, I'd be like, what the fuck are you reading? So she says she has the negative of the photo from last year's festival, and will have it reprinted for Edward. He leaves, but he stakes the place out, and when the doctor leaves, he breaks into the house. He has a nifty little lock-picking kit, which is kind of cool. So he immediately goes to the book because, of course, you go to the Rituals of the Ancients book. And when he opens it, he finds a piece of parchment with writing on it stuck in between the pages. And on this page, it indicates that there was a harvest ritual, I think that the Incans did, supposedly, excuse me, at least in the context of this film, about the ritual killing of a young woman to ensure a good harvest of crops. So Edward just goes on a spree, just rifling through this old lady's shit, and he finds a file containing Rowan's picture from the Harvest Festival, and it it also reads, it's like just a title. It just says "Worst Harvest on Record."
Yeah, which is so fucking funny.
It's ham-fisted, right? Like, there's no nuance, and also you're saving time, right? Like, if they did like a voiceover narration of some text inside this file, it would have tacked on a completely unnecessary 45 seconds. Instead, it just says "Worst Harvest on Record. This girl did it." So Edward takes the file and he confronts Willow with it. One of the lines in it, he's getting frustrated at this point, and now he's starting to act more like a normal person would. And he's like, every time I turn my head, there's something that doesn't make any sense. Which, no shit, that's been all of this so far. Willow explains nothing again, and Edward is not nearly mad enough about this, in my opinion. But he's distracted because him and Willow make out a bit at this point. And then he's back on the road, and this time he has a bike. So he's upgraded his transportation method on this island. And in fact,
which was I just found that so funny too, that they basically just wheeled like, here's your bike, and then Nick Cage in like a full suit, like riding a bike somewhat
I have a
poorly.
whole thing. It's so weird to see a man in a full suit ride a bike. It is, it's disconcerting.
I mean, unless it's a penny farthing.
Sure,
one of the big wheel, little wheels.
Yeah, I get, like, in the context, like placed in time and like a period piece. Sure, it doesn't seem so weird. In any other context, it's like seeing like a great white shark stuck in an oak tree. Yeah. It's completely out of place. Speaking of, or rather, in celebration of Edward's advance in transportation technology, listen to these ads. Maybe they're for bikes. Or one of those electric scooter things. Who knows? The possibilities really are endless.
Or a transportation bureau trying to, get us to build more monorails.
There you go.
But if it's for one of those motorized scooters, though, don't ride those in New York City. Cops are literally just sticking their nightsticks in the wheels and then beating the shit out of people for riding them.
Wait, is that fucking real?
Yeah, I saw today on Instagram a video of a cop literally arresting one guy on one and another guy zooming past it, and he took his nightstick and just jammed it in the tire. The dude fell off, and they just beat the shit out of the guy.
NYPD,
sounds about
baby.
Cops.
Why? The companies have to have something against that. If there's anything that reigns in cops, it's declining profits from commercial enterprises.
I don't know. I'll send you the video because it's rough. It's a rough watch.
Back on the road, Edward ends up in another interaction with one of the very few men we see on the island. And this guy, by the way, I love the occupations of men on this island. Off the top of my head, what we see men in this film doing is carrying burlap sacks, carrying a wicker basket filled with twigs on their back. And then this gentleman in this scene who is stacking very thin logs onto a cart, precipitously stacking them onto a cart. And so Edward stops to help him throw a couple logs up and then saves him when this precarious stack of lumber falls over and threatens to hit the man. The man refuses to make eye contact and does not say a word in response to any of Edward's prompting. That's weird, but Edward doesn't dwell on it very long. So he's tooling around on the bike, and we get a bit of an oopsie from Edward here. He managed to blunder his way into the section of the island that is an apiary explicitly, and manages to hit every beehive on his way through here.
It was like fucking Sideshow Bob with the rakes.
That's exactly what I was thinking too. The fucking rakes and the Cape Fear.
That is exactly
100%.
what it was.
100. He hits like 8 full beehives as he's going through this place, which, as the movie very clearly ham-fistedly demonstrated, he's severely allergic to. So we do get an overhead shot where it's kind of cool, like the apiary is set up with honeycomb walkways.
Yeah,
that's a cool bit of landscaping, I'll give him that. And so Edward waits way too long to try and hit himself with the EpiPen and passes out. He wakes up in a bed with Dr. Photographer just staring at him. And she informs him that he is in the home of Sister Summersisle. She's out front and has been expecting him. We get a weird answer where like he's like, "Did you use one of my adrenaline shots?" And she's like, "No, I healed you using the old ways." And he's like, "The fuck does that mean?" And she's like, "You're not dead." And he's like, "Fair, that's fair. I'll stop asking questions." Which, you know what? I was critical of at first, but that is exactly how I'd respond to my doctor. Like, if I was in a terrible accident and I woke up and I'm like, "What happened?" They're like, "You were in a terrible accident." We're like, "What did you guys do?" And they're like, "We kept you from dying." And we'll be like, I probably wouldn't understand the more in-depth explanation. Yeah. So I'm cool with that.
And why did he have adrenaline? What?
Well, isn't an EpiPen, like, isn't that adrenaline?
I don't think so, because adrenaline is in your heart.
Epinephrine is adrenaline. Apparently.
Is it adrenaline? Okay.
I didn't know that. Okay, now I know.
Yeah, me neither.
We have our consulting physician.
Yes, we do. On retainer. The retaining amount is just $0.
I'm sorry. Legally, for legal reasons, she's not a physician, but she knows medical shit.
But she's a mob doctor. But we do not pay her.
She pulls bullets out of people when they can't go to the hospital because you have to report a gunshot wound to the police. Anyway, don't fact check us on that. So he got healed with the old ways, and he's like, all right, fine. He does do something wise here because things have been getting progressively weirder. He checks his gun, which is a good idea.
Yeah,
that he should have stuck with. But he gets dressed and he goes to meet Sister Summersisle. She talks like she's the epitome of these characters talking in weird, very thinly veiled, like you're in danger speak that Edward completely glosses over. He requests permission to exhume the grave that he was told Rowan was in, which she gives right away. She's like, yeah, sure, fucking do it. But they continue to talk, and Sister Summersisle goes on about the rituals that they do and how they're to the mother goddess, and Summersisle, as the leader of this community, is the goddess's physical manifestation or representative on Earth. And he's like, that's fucking crazy. They get into a bit of an argument about what constitutes murder, and Summersisle gives us a bit of the history of the island. It was originally founded by Celtic pioneers who moved to the New World for the promise of freedom of religion, but settled a little bit too close to Salem. And after seeing what happened there, they took off again until they finally landed on Bee Island, which we now own. So we get some more disturbing implications regarding men's role on this island, what happens to male babies that are born, but nothing is
They're
said
stoned.
explicitly.
They're stoned. They're stoned until their IQ is under a 72.
I was stoned all through college, and I turned out fine.
I think we're talking about two different stones.
Yeah, probably. Speaking of Salem, though, I don't know if we've mentioned this on the podcast before, but y'all know the story of Giles Corey.
Oh yeah, the guy that was he was fucking juiced to death.
Yeah, he was
Wait,
pressed to
no,
death.
I don't know this.
Yeah.
Okay, so as far as I can remember, and please take this with a grain of salt, I'm sure there's a bunch of solid historians and books about this, but I went to Salem, did all like the historical tours, and Giles Corey was one of my favorite individuals that I heard about while I was there. As far as I can tell, he was just a dickish
Yes,
old man.
he was just like an asshole who like they fucking hated, so they were like, he's a witch.
Exactly.
He's a witch.
Yeah,
He's an
he was
asshole.
just an asshole to everybody. And so in the like height of the witch hunt fervor, somebody was like, he's a witch. And they like brought him to trial and he's like, fuck you. Say whatever you want to say. Sure, I'm a witch. And they're like, all right, fine. We sentence you to death by pressing, which is where they put a board on top of you and continue to stack stones on you until your like eyes are popping out of your head.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
No,
fun.
wait, that might be it. I think either he wouldn't confess or he wouldn't do something.
Yeah, something like
and they're
that.
like, we're gonna keep doing this until you do. And so it takes days for him to die from this. And at the end, when, like I said, like his eyes are bulging out of his head, and he can't close his mouth because his like tongue is sticking out. Like the sheriff is like, well, are you gonna do it now? Do you have anything to say for yourself? And he's just like, more weight. I will say this. I don't respect assholes very often.
Oh,
But
I
if
respect
you
that dude so much.
Remain an unrepentant asshole in the face of your own excruciatingly slow death. Props.
Yep.
I'll give you fucking that one, man.
He also inspired a really sad band, Giles Corey.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. They're it's a fucking like solo project from one of the guys from Have a Nice Life, which is already a crushingly depressing band.
Huh.
I'll have to check them out. I like sad bands that have side projects as sadder bands.
Yes.
As Rich can attest to, since
Yeah.
he's seen me at both a Wonder Years concert and an Aaron West in the Roaring Twenties concert.
There you
Yeah.
go.
Wonder Years, sad. Aaron West in the Roaring Twenties, suicidal. Because just if you haven't listened to their entire first album front to back, it's a concept album, and in the end he basically tries to commit suicide and fails.
Oh.
Very good show though, the last one we went to.
Yeah.
Glad it didn't get rained out. So after all of this, like Edward's a little bit on his heels with Sister Summersisle, because at the end of the conversation he angrily demands, he's like, so give me permission to dig up the grave. And she's like, I did, like when we first started talking. And she's absolutely right about that. She did. So Edward goes, he's off again on his bike. This is the scene that Rich mentioned. They're like, here's your transportation, and just one of the drone dudes just like wheels up the bike. He's like, thank you, good day. Rides off.
It's so good.
He goes to the grave, and he digs until he hits a coffin. He pries the coffin open, and the only thing that is inside is straw and a burned plastic baby doll. So this is where, Rich, you're not wrong. The initial scene of the movie doesn't have a direct laid out impact for us.
I get the lines connect. Like, I get that.
Well, so the only thing about it that does make sense, that would make it make sense, is the part of the movie that makes no sense as far as a continuous storyline is concerned, which we will get to at the end. Rich, you and I talked about this before Ryan hopped on and way before we started recording, even for the Patreon subscribers. So we'll get to that. But after finding the burnt baby doll, he hears crying from a nearby crypt that Willow explained to him earlier in the film was flooded. He goes into the crypt, and he finds in the water of the flooded crypt the sweater that Rowan was last seen in. So he lifts up one of these grates and he swims down to try and find Rowan's drowned body, we can only presume. But something like falls and blocks the grate, so he is trapped in the water and stuck there shouting for some period of time. This was the scene that I thought was not incredibly necessary. He could have found the sweater and been fine, but we got another swimming scene for some reason, because I guess LaBute just loved seeing Nick Cage swim. That's the only thing I can
Loves
think of.
a wet cage.
Yeah. Who doesn't? I can't hold it.
I know I do.
But eventually, Willow finds him in the crypt and lets him out. And he interrogates Willow about the doll that he found in the grave site, which is another great delivery by Nick Cage. The how'd I get burned? How'd I get burned? Which it's not even
Very
really
good
the
on
relevant
hand.
question there. But Edward's like, I have to go confront Sister Summersisle. Willow, lock yourself in the house. I will come get you later. Something bad is going to happen. I have some inexplicable feeling that something awful is going to happen. And Willow's like you're just getting that sense. So he finds Summerisle's house seemingly abandoned. There's nobody in there. He's like calling out. And then weird shit starts to happen. He goes into one room and there is just a very severely stung up, like old bearded man in a bed. And he's like, nothing to see here. Closes that door. He continues on. He opens another door and there is a naked woman covered in bees just sitting in a chair in an otherwise bare room. And he's like, nothing to see here. He closes that door. He continues on. And as far as I can tell, he wanders around the house for a little bit more and then just fucking leaves. But the camera pans up to Sister Summersisle in just, it is one of the better composed shots of the film. Sister Summersisle is in this like 4-poster bed on like a raised dais in a room with a sunlight and attendants. And she's like, it's not just like a underneath a comforter. She's in like a robe blanket. It's odd.
A snuggie.
Yeah. A royal snuggie.
Bring me the royal snuggie.
Bring me the royal snuggie. So Edward's back out on the road and Sister Rose rides up on a bike wearing a bird mask. Apparently Edward did not bring his own bike for this leg of the trip. So he tries to take Rose's bike from her. And there is a funny amount of tug of war that's done here. Like he yanks the bike, Rose yanks it back, he yanks it back, she yanks it back. He yanks it back one more time. She goes to yank it back and he pulls his gun on her. It's like a whitest kids you know sketch at this point. So she finally relents and he rides off on the bike. He runs into the creepy old lady twins on the road, but just rides past them. When he gets to the tavern, there's only men in the common room. And he tries to do a dude's rock speech. He's like, I need your help. We got to band together. Come with me.
Dudes
and
rock.
They're all ignoring him. They're drinking. They're playing cards. They're having a good time.
They're playing checkers, which I found very funny.
They're playing checkers. They're playing cards. They're playing games and drinking, which is, it's just
it's
a
dudes
hipster
rock.
bar.
Yeah,
They're not talking. They're not talking,
exactly.
which is important. Which is important. But also, dudes don't talk to each other anyway.
Yeah. They play checkers or cards and
dudes
drink
will do anything other than go to
sullen
therapy.
Silence. So this is one of the version we watched is missing this part. I'm fairly certain this is the part with the extended scenes where we learn that the men have their tongues cut out. The only indication we get in this version that we watched is Nick Cage, Edward actually grabs one of the men, and he says what sounds like "get off me," but it is explicitly garbled in a way you would expect from somebody who doesn't have a tongue.
Yeah, it comes out as "Come."
Yeah. So I'm fairly certain the extended scene actually shows like the stump of the tongue at this point, but it might have happened at a different point. So now we get to my favorite part of the film where everything is off the rails. Edward just starts going house to house on the island, kicking down doors and demanding to inspect people's children. It is child inspection day, people.
This is where the film starts getting real funny.
Yeah.
Bring out your kids, make them take off their masks. I need to make sure they're not this kid.
And he's just like knocking off kids, like back fisting kids almost to take their masks off, like just knocking them off.
Yeah, it's so fucking awesome. I'm sorry, these scenes are so fucking awesome.
No, this movie, like, okay, I know I have bitched about the tonal shift in like 8mm. This is a tonal shift in the correct direction.
Yeah, it's fuck it, we're going crazy right now.
Yeah.
The other funny thing about this is because this is like half a montage. If you notice, like his suit is getting dirtier and more disheveled the more he does this stuff. He ends up down by the dock again, and he sees that the seaplane has been sunk. Only like the tip of one wing can be seen, and he discovers the dead and mutilated body of the pilot. Edward goes back to the tavern and confronts Sister Beach. It's one of the best scenes in the movie. So the way we see it is Sister Beach is talking to one of the first older ladies that Edward ran into in the film. And they're talking about how the older lady handled the pilot and some light banter about Sister Beach's bear costume that she's supposed to wear for the festival. So Edward comes around a corner. The women see him, and the older lady leaves. She's like, it's time for me to go. And Edward walks very slowly up to Sister Beach. Very tense moment. And then he just punches her in the face.
Yeah.
And knocks her out.
It's so good.
It's really good. Every time he throws a punch in this,
fucking
it's
nowhere.
Comedy gold.
Just fucking cold cocks her. We cut to the town square where Sister Summersisle is, her face is painted half white, half blue with gold accents around her eyes. A bunch of people are congregating and wearing animal masks. Back at the tavern, Edward goes to put on Sister Beach's bear costume, but is jumped by the sister girl who works as a tavern helper. This is fucking hilarious because she's clinging to his back and like scratching at him. He throws her off, hits her with just a stiff jab, and then standing sidekicks her into the wall where she collapses down like an 80s action film villain. It's amazing.
The only thing that would have made it better is if he like picked her up and put her on a hook and said, hang around a little.
Yeah, exactly. But you know what else would be cooler? If we took a brief break to go over ads. Actually, that wouldn't be cool. What would be cooler is if you subscribe to the Patreon so you don't have to listen to this bullshit. The ads, I mean, not our bullshit. That's what you'd be paying for. But in the meantime, settle for this less cool option of us doing an ad break real quick.
Yeah, patreon.com/NickCageFight. Go check that shit out.
Boom.
So anyway, Nick Cage has a bear costume now.
Yeah. It's the greatest prop in cinema history.
A bear costume acquired. Oh shit. Did anybody look at the auctions from the writer's strike to see if the bear costume is one of the things they're auctioning off?
I'm about to check.
I did not.
Anyway, so the festival continues with a line of figures following Sister Summersisle through the woods. Edward is now in full bear costume. And he sees Willow walking the procession. He runs up to her and says, I thought I told you to wait. To which she looks at him like he's fucking crazy. In her defense, he is dressed as a bear. But she says, you know, I had to come. What are you talking about? I couldn't miss this.
Also, I see no auction, so
Yeah.
Well,
Neither.
that's a fucking shit.
They might have just rented that bear costume from like one of the costumeries at fucking LA or some shit.
Yeah, I mean that's a possibility.
I don't know. They dropped $40 million on this movie.
Yeah, because it's really hard to steal $1 million from a budget of 10 million.
So, sorry, I had to briefly try and just look if it wasn't on auction, but somebody owned it as a piece of memorabilia. My search will continue after this. So the procession eventually gets to a clearing where Rowan, the missing little girl, is tied to a stake in a clearing. Edward runs up in full bear costume again, mind you, and punches the lady nearest the tied up little girl directly in the face, again knocking her out.
But I need to set the scene though, because the way he did it was hilarious. Like, he's on a full sprint, and instead of continuing the sprint and hit, he comes to a dead stop and then reels back and punches her right in the face.
You know what it gave me vibes of? The Sir Galahad scene from Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
Yeah.
Because he covers a lot of just open ground and nobody's reacting. And then suddenly he's there and punching this lady in the face. He unties Rowan at this point and takes off into the woods, pursued by a mob of villagers.
As opposed to pursued by bear, which is where you would exit stage left.
Yes.
Little Shakespeare joke for you Philistines out there.
There you go. Yeah, that's not gonna land with our audience.
No.
So after avoiding the villagers, Edward's cell phone rings, and we get another one of my favorite moments in the film, because as I said, partway through, Cage just starts playing this very, very straight as far as human reactions to what is going on. And nothing exemplifies this better than this cell phone scene. His cell phone rings and he flips it open and he's like, Pete, help me, help us. Pete, no answer. But like, it is such a human response in that is exactly the way I would answer my phone at that point in time. I don't think it's necessarily good writing as far as a movie is concerned, but it is incredibly
it's efficient.
accurate.
It gets the point across.
Yeah. It hit home as the realest scene in an otherwise surreal movie.
Yeah.
Edward ditches the bear costume at this point, and Rowan runs off. Edward pursues, and they end up back in a field where all the villagers are gathered. Rowan runs up to Willow, who is standing directly next to Sister Summersisle, and asks, did I do it right? Did I do a good job? And she's like, yeah, you did. And Sister Summersisle is like, yeah, you did it perfect. And now the villagers surround Edward, and they explain he's come of his own free will to keep his appointment with the Wicker Man. And they reveal the letter was a ruse from the outset to trick him into coming into the island, and Willow is in on it the whole time. They tricked him into thinking that they would sacrifice his daughter, when he's actually the one that they're going to sacrifice.
Yeah, he was thoroughly bamboozled.
Oh yeah, Willow is actually Summerisle's daughter, which makes Rowan her granddaughter, which makes Edward, just with the missing involving the federal government in their relationship, her son-in-law, technically. And so this is where the tie-in to the beginning elements of the movie is maybe explained, but it's explained in a way that makes no logical sense whatsoever. So the camera pans, and one of the women in the village looks identical. I couldn't confirm it through the cast list. Looks exactly like the woman cop that comes to visit him after the accident before he leaves for the island. Ryan, did you catch that?
She looked similar, but like you said, I couldn't identify it on IMDb.
Well, yeah, and they flash back too.
Yeah,
so there's supposed to be some.
They flash
connection.
back to her, and she has like a bee on her face, which is like the whole imagery. But this doesn't make any fucking sense. If she is like a Summersisle resident, how is she maintaining a full-time job as a fucking cop not on the island just to snare one dude? That's crazy. That's absolutely crazy. So anyway, Edward tries to shoot the rapidly encroaching villagers at this point, but it turns out that Willow stole all the bullets from his gun. He did only check his gun one time in the film. Should have probably checked it a couple more times.
Also, what's he going to do? There's like 100 people there. He's got like 18 bullets at most.
Take some of them with you.
Take 18 with you.
Yeah, 100%. Hell is best visited with company, in my opinion.
All right.
So the villagers rush him. And despite the fact, I do love this about Edward. Say what you will about the man, say what you will about the character as a protagonist. He fucking throws punches and kicks like a madman, like a martial arts movie. He fucking kicks the like roundhouses like 3 villagers in this scene before they finally beat him down.
Yeah, and a scene that is 100% not Nicolas Cage.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they rush him, they break his legs. This is another scene that is in the extended version, but not in this version. Where
in this version you hear it, but yeah, you don't see it.
But in the extended version, they put like a wicker basket on his head and dump a bunch of bees in there, where we get the classic line, "Not the bees."
They're in my mouth.
Which is one of my favorite memes, because my favorite chain restaurant to go to get drunk is Applebee's. So when a group of friends asks, is like, let's just get cheap dinner somewhere, and their response to me every time is "Not the bees." So,
but I mean, it sort of doesn't make sense. I mean, it's a very funny scene, but it sort of doesn't make sense for them to dump a bunch of bees on his head. Because they're just gonna
what are you gonna give him
anyway.
anaphylactic shock before you fucking
they
him?
already broke his legs. They're only at risk of killing him from anaphylactic shock.
There's no reason to dump a bunch of bees on him.
So they don't show the leg breaking in the extended cut, right?
I don't believe so.
Okay. I like to imagine it's much like Misery, where Kathy Bates just puts a fucking 2x4 between his legs and hobbles him from the opposite sides with a sledgehammer.
I can tell you, if they cover the leg breaking at all, it is definitely not to the degree of brutality of Misery.
No, it can't be. That's one of the.
That's a big one.
Never forget that fucking scene.
The sound, man. The sound.
The first time I watched that movie, I was like 12, and I threw up.
Oh, that's awesome,
Hell
man.
Yeah.
That's how you know a movie's working.
Yeah, threw up.
Shout out Misery.
Hell yeah.
You did it right.
Fucking James Caan, Kathy Bates. Excellent film.
So, we then get to Edward being carried to the giant Wicker Man, which is literally, if you're not familiar for whatever reason, it's literally just a giant man.
It's Burning Man
made out of kindling. Burning Man.
100%. It's just Burning Man with a person inside.
But
wait, you're telling me they don't put a hippie in Burning Man?
I mean,
I thought they used to.
Yeah.
Now. Well, Burning Man started as a fertility ritual, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I mean, now they put a poor person in it.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. They didn't do that this year, which is why they all got stuck in the mud.
Yeah.
Right. They tried to forego the poor person, and they just got the poorest person who was there, who still cleared like 125 grand a year. So
not poor enough.
Some
not
fucking
poor
hedge
enough.
fund manager.
Still had an unwashed ass though.
Still had an unwashed ass. No, you need somebody who is, destitute. A fucking waitress at Applebee's is who you need.
Oh yeah. Although I will do a quick shout out for another podcast. My favorite part of Burning Man this year was Brace from TrueAnon getting the news to bite on the fact that there was the not true fact that there was an Ebola outbreak at Burning Man and that the National Guard was quarantining them.
Cool.
Oh shit. Also, another shout out to a different podcast. A-Lab did an entire deep dive on Neil Katyal, who was at Burning Man and posted one of the worst selfies I've ever fucking seen.
Wait, who is this? Because I don't know who this person is.
Oh my God. All right. So Neil Katyal is an attorney who has appeared many, many times in front of the Supreme Court, and the podcast A-Lab, All Lawyers Are Bastards, did a what if episode, because Neil Katyal would have technically been on the short list for a Supreme Court nomination if Hillary Clinton had won the 2016 election. But Neil Katyal also has very famously argued in favor of child sweatshop workers on behalf of Nestle in front of the Supreme Court. Not a great person. If you want to know about Neil Katyal, I recommend you go check out the episode on A-Lab about him. Anyway, Burning Man, Wicker Man, we're back. So we get to one of my favorite line deliveries in the entirety of the film, because when when Edward sees the Wicker Man, Nick Cage, who has been brutalized and stung by a bunch of bees, just goes, "Oh my god." And the line is delivered almost exactly like
Yeah,
that.
it is. It's
And
really
I
good.
use that line all the time.
He sounds like Hank Hill a little
Oh
bit.
my god. It's so perfect. Um, and so they lift him up into the Wicker Man that's also filled with like goats and chickens and stuff. Because if you're gonna do a sacrifice, you might as well like cover all your fucking bases.
Just in case Nick Cage isn't enough.
Yeah, right. Those are multipliers, right?
Yeah.
And so
That's how you
Rowan,
get that S rank for sacrifice.
yeah,
S for
exactly.
sacrifice.
So Rowan is given a torch to go and light the Wicker Man on fire. And another hilarious bit of the movie to me is she runs up with the torch, and the whole time her father, Edward, is like, "No, no, no, honey, don't do that. Don't do Dad's gonna die gruesomely if you do that. Please don't do that." She doesn't pause at all. She runs up and dunks that shit. Fucking windmill directly into the kindling at the bottom of this Wicker Man, which goes up in flames. Edward starts screaming. All of the women are chanting, "The drone must die, the drone must die." Fantastic. It's perfect ending scene to a movie. But wait, we are not done yet. We cut to 6 months later. And who do we see at the bar? But fucking James Franco and Jason Ritter are just at a fucking bar. And we're like, every time I'm like, what the fuck is happening? And they're like, "Oh yeah, we gotta get out of here. There's like no chicks here.
There's like no chicks. We're like lawyer dudes.
Yeah,
matter.
Yeah. And then
no, they're not lawyers.
No,
they're like
cop
lawyer,
dudes.
they're cops.
They're cop dudes.
Yeah, they're complaining about it being like a lawyer crowd. What they're basically saying is like, there's no low class enough chicks here that we could hook up with. They're all lawyers. And then in walks Willow and Sister Tavern Helper Girl from the island. And the boys immediately notice them and go to hit on them. Turns out Franco just graduated from the police academy. And when Jason Ritter and Willow go to the bar, Sister Tavern Helper asks Franco, where are you gonna go after you're done at the bar? And he says, I'm gonna go home to my apartment. And she asks, "Will you take me with you?" Exactly mirroring what she said to Edward Malice on the island. And we get a close up on her face and just hear the increasing droning of like bees and Nick Cage screaming, and roll fucking credits. And that, my friends, is a fucking movie.
how I choose to believe that they picked those two women is that they all got together like, okay, listen, out of the 200 women here, who here has a breeding fetish?
So I will pose a different scenario in which, so we suffer under the consequences in our real lives of a very strongly established patriarchy. And people talk about this all the time. And the only way we
can't
can
go
really
into about hearing about this patriarchy here, patriarchy there.
The only times we really get to try and examine a matriarchal society is typically through
episodes of Star Trek,
or fictional vehicles, right? So I'm not defending the patriarchy, but I gotta say, I think any specific gender controlled society would have some issues. So Rich, you propose let's pick out the ones with a breeding fetish and we'll send them to entrap men for our later sacrifices. I would counter that with,
that wasn't me making a point. That was me making a silly joke.
I've got another silly joke for you. All of the controlling women of the island have to get together and select the hottest ones to send out onto the mainland. And I'm just gonna throw this out here. I think that meeting would be brutal.
It's like Love Island.
You know what I'm fucking saying?
Yeah.
Like Sister Beach is like, why don't you ever send me to the mainland?
I
and
just want to get dicked down by mainlanders.
I want
Summer's
someone.
Isles like Sister Beach. You know why we don't send you to the mainland?
Yeah, you look like Brad Dourif.
Oh my god.
But yeah, no, I have a feeling that selection process would be relatively brutal. All right, joking aside, for just a brief moment, this was an entertaining film.
Yes.
I'm not saying it was a good film. It was an entertaining film. And to be honest, we've been through some ups and downs on this podcast. I think we can all agree with that.
Yeah, it's been a while since we had a bad one that was funny, and that's what this was.
It was. And I am willing 100% of the time to settle for entertaining. You don't have to fucking wow me. Like, art can be many, many things, but as long as you enjoy the time that you have invested, I think it can be considered successful. And that this movie very much does that for me. But also, it is relying on an incredibly strong trope of a story. This cult bit with a ignorant protagonist that finds themselves caught up in this machination. Most recently, Midsummer, which everybody fucking went bonkers for.
Yeah, I liked it. It's a bear in a cage in that one.
There's
a guy in a bear suit in that movie too.
Midsummer took a lot from Wicker Man. They probably, I'm assuming, took more inspiration from the original than necessarily the Nick Cage one, but still, the outline is there.
I mean, the original is like the movie that popularized this type of folk horror tropes.
Yeah. But there's been a bunch of other ones. I was trying to find, our Patreon subscribers will know, I was trying to find, I swore there was a made-for-TV movie that was very much along these lines with Dan Aykroyd in it, but I must be misremembering that because we couldn't find shit about that.
Yeah, but my knowledge of folk horror stuff mostly trends towards the British and like world cinema, so if it's American, I probably don't know it off the top of my head.
Gotcha. But another movie I heard compared to The Wicker Man was a movie called Kill List, which I will strongly caution our listeners who, for whatever reason, listen to this for recommendations about other movies. I will say it is an intriguing movie. It's very interesting, but it is also incredibly disturbing, among the more disturbing movies I have seen. So caution if you go into that. But it is similar in nature. I get the comparison people are drawing with it. So,
and also, I'll throw out a recommendation of an Italian film from the 90s called Dark Waters, about a woman who goes to an island that's just got a convent on it, and matriarchal nun shit happens. It's very Wicker Man.
There was a whatchamacallit. It was another Netflix movie.
Is it The Apostle?
Yes, The Apostle.
I loved The Apostle.
That was really good.
Juiced that guy at the end.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, no, honestly, that was one of the ones where it's like I put off watching it for a while because like I've seen a number of movies pitched along those lines that just end up being incredibly dry period pieces with like 3 scenes that could technically qualify as horror. The Apostle was fucking not bad.
That's actually something I recommend to new keepers for Call of Cthulhu. If you're going to run that role-playing game, I say this is like what you're aiming for atmosphere-wise.
Oh, yeah, definitely. But yeah, no, that is another very, very good example of this theme. It's a solid theme. It's hard. It's really hard to go wrong with it.
Yeah.
This movie, I would say, did technically go wrong with it, but
but in a way that's entertaining. 100%.
Yeah, the end product is just infinitely entertaining. I don't think that they realized.
No, they didn't know they were making a comedy at all.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It sort of just ended up that way.
Yeah. Much like Troll 2.
Yeah, well, Troll 2 was just so excessively bad. It's entertaining to watch it in the way you would watch like a train wreck.
Yeah.
I would say
that's how I view this movie though.
Fair.
Yeah.
I would say if you made a self-aware version of this movie with a different horror trope, I would compare
You
it
would
to
get
Tucker and
Cabin in the
Dale
Woods.
versus Evil.
Yeah.
Wait, what was
okay. That? I was saying you would get Cabin in the Woods, but yeah, Tucker and Dale's actually a perfect shout out for that.
Yeah, like that again. Just taking a classic horror trope and making it a comedy. They just did it accidentally here.
Yeah.
But no, enjoyable. I do recommend this one. This is an easy one to recommend. You're not going to hate it. You're going to laugh at a number of portions of it. And it does manage to successfully build tension to a certain extent. It just, instead of the payoff capitalizing it with some sort of emotional response that relates to horror films, it's more of a comedic response. So attention up to a funny punchline. I'm fine with that. I'm very fine with that. So yeah, what I gotta know. Well, what's next for us?
Yeah, what we got for us?
In the horror month, the next thing we got is Willy's Wonderland, which is something I have actually been looking forward to. I know that you two have not been.
Yeah, because I saw it and I found it fucking boring.
I haven't seen it, and I have been looking forward to it because
I'm not even gonna like rant about it right now. I'll save that for next week.
Yeah, save it for
like
the content.
Okay, I will say the only funny thing about it is that he is just chugging energy drinks the entire movie.
I like that.
He's just like absolutely smashing energy drinks, and you can tell it was originally intended to be beer, but they wanted this movie to appeal to the 6-year-olds who like Five Nights at Freddy's YouTube poops, so they couldn't have alcohol in it.
So that's what it's supposed to be, right?
That's 100%
Five Nights
at Freddy's. Yes.
Which is a game also I've never played.
It's not,
and
good.
I don't understand the appeal.
It's worse. Night Trap. Five Nights at Freddy's is the worst version of Night Trap.
Okay.
You're setting up traps and trying to like fucking not get killed by the goons, but the goons are animatronic fucking Charles Entertainment cheese fucking structures.
All right.
Hey, I'm interested. Hopefully it's bad in a way that we can work with.
Yeah,
I think there's something to talk about, but like fucking bored me to death when I watched it.
Just from like reading about it, it seems like something that's up my alley, but I could be wrong.
It's a blatant cash grab, and it feels like it to me.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Well, we will deal with that. We'll burn that bridge when we get to it.
I will say, I think the poster's fucking cool. That's one good thing I'll say about it.
Yeah, the poster got me too.
Yeah, the poster does look dope. Yeah. I'm gonna jump into the Patreon first because I stumbled upon an idea that we're gonna do. I'm gonna force Josh and Ryan to
I'm not spending a night in an abandoned Chuck E. Cheese.
Yeah, we are.
Okay,
for any amount.
How about a Showbiz Pizza? You want to hang out with the Showbiz Pizza Bear?
We are going to talk about Nick Cage characters and which ones would have gone to Epstein's Island, because that just sounds like fun to me.
It sounds like bad taste, but I have no standards, so hell yeah.
I would say it was in bad taste if it wasn't, to me, implicitly clear that rich and powerful people killed that man before he could spill the beans on all of them.
Absolutely,
and reveal,
yeah.
Like the truly corrupt, like all the insane conspiracy-addled people. Like we might have been able to cure some of them with a dose of truth. And I remember when he got arrested and he was put in jail, I was like, all right, so if he dies, like we all know what's up, right? And of course he fucking died. And I was just like, Jesus Christ, we're not even trying anymore.
Well, yeah, because everyone, like 80% of America, no matter where you lay on the political spectrum, we're just like, this shit's about to get real interesting, isn't it?
It's the arm grip meme. It's the right wing crazies, left wing crazies. Epstein didn't kill himself.
Oh, you mean the Predator?
Predator, yeah.
Dylan,
100%.
You son of a bitch! What does the CIA have you pushing too many pencils, Dylan? That one.
Yeah, I don't know that I've ever run into somebody who was legitimately like, oh yeah, no, Epstein killed himself. I can't think of a single fucking person. It's wild. So I don't even know if it's in poor taste as much as it is just generally acknowledging the absurd circumstances we have allowed ourselves to live in at this point in time.
No, I'm just throwing a bone to some people because I know that we have to have listeners who are just like, I like when they talk about Nick Cage movies. I hate when they talk about paying poor people.
Yeah,
but
all right.
You're poor.
If you're listening to us, you're poor.
You're probably poor.
This will be our apology for the 9/11 movie episodes.
Yeah.
Oh shit! Speaking of, I heard something awful about that I want to clear up right now, real quick.
Okay, ready.
We said some words, some kind words about Michael Pena in the course of that episode. And I learned we have to take it all back. Apparently, he is a Scientologist, and his wife is one of the people in Scientology that was key in covering up Danny Masterson's rapes.
Oh my god!
Yep. All right, okay, I'm cool with cancel. Listen, like I'm cool
pretty sure the only
Michael
positive
Pena.
thing I said about that was that he's funny sometimes, but I could stand corrected probably.
It's really gonna put a damper on rewatching one of my other favorite movies, Observe and Report.
I just got that at the Goodwilliam.
Oh my god, you've seen it before, right?
Oh yeah, I saw it in theaters. I was the only one that was still in the theater by the end.
I remember this story because you said you took a date to it and she left halfway through, right?
Yes, I did. But I stayed because I wanted to see the movie, and you know what? She was kind of a boring date to begin with.
Well, yeah, if she walked out to an Observe and Report, yeah.
That movie's a litmus test for people.
Absolutely.
And anybody who says who's like that's a terrible movie is like, you are not in support of full frontal male nudity in film. You're a hypocrite. Also, Ray Liotta's best performance.
Yes. Yeah. Definitely better than In the Name of the King, a Dungeon Siege story.
R.I.P. to a real one.
Okay. Yep. No, I think that does it. I think we've
I don't think I gave out the Patreon, which is patreon.com/Nick Cage.
You said it at one of the ad breaks, but you didn't say it at the end.
Yeah. I'm saying it. I'm just saying it to say it. Give us money, please. We're poor.
Pretty please. We're asking incredibly.
Josh has to get married.
I do. That's happening one way or another. Just please allow me to gain a hovel for my new family.
Yeah, you should see Josh's living arrangement. There's so many people living in that fucking house.
It's true though. Please subscribe to the Patreon. But also, if you're an uncle, you can find us on Facebook. If you are on X, you can find us at cagefight_pod until they start charging everybody for using it, in which case you will not find us there. We will instead, I don't know,
we'll figure it out.
Biplanes to
on the beach.
Yeah, banners on the beach. It'll just have our the name of our podcast. I wonder how much that would cost. I'm gonna look that up.
That's a good question, because Rita's Water Ice fucking advertises on those, and I can't imagine we make that much less than Rita's Water Ice.
We make negative money. Rita's Water Ice has to make money. There's very low overhead.
No,
those are all drug
syrups.
money fucking laundering services. Every single one of them.
I mean, in fairness though, we do probably make more money than Amazon.
Yeah.
All right, everyone. That is going to do it for us for this movie. Wicker Man in the books. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please remember, folks, we appreciate you.
Oh God. Oh my God. No, not the bye-byes.